They told me I was paranoid. They told me I was overthinking a simple exhibition match between species. They told me there was absolutely no way in any conceivable universe that the human could win. And you know what? I believed them, because I'm an idiot. My name is Vector, and I'm a statistical analyst for the Galactic Combat Federation, which means I get paid actual credits to watch beings punch each other while gravity does funny things to their internal organs. It's a living. The arena that day was the Obsidian Sphere on station Kepler 442, famous for two things: its gravity manipulation technology that could crush a Dendarian flat as a protein wafer, and its overpriced concessions. I'd crunched the numbers 17 different ways. Every simulation, every probability matrix, every statistical model pointed to the same conclusion. The human, this Jack Reeves character, was going to get absolutely demolished. Karklovex, our reigning Thoraxian champion, would break him in under 4 minutes. The odds were 80. I should have bet against those odds. I really should have. Karklovex stood in the preparation chamber like a monument to violence. 8 feet tall, 6 limbs rippling with muscle that looked like it had been carved from living stone, and a hide thick enough to stop plasma rounds. His species, the Thoraxians, evolved on a planet with 1.8 standard gravities, which made them naturally built like mobile fortresses. He'd won 43 consecutive matches in the gravity arena, and the bookies were already calculating his 44th victory. The Thoraxian was doing his pre-fight ritual, which involved flexing each limb in sequence while growling something that the translators helpfully rendered as, "I will crush the soft flesh into paste." Charming fellow, really. Then there was Jack Reeves, human, 5 feet and 10 inches of what I can only describe as aggressively average, brown hair that looked like he'd cut it himself with safety scissors. A physique that suggested he occasionally remembered to exercise, but only when the mood struck him. He wore simple combat shorts and a tank top that had seen better days, and he was leaning against the wall of his prep chamber eating something he called a protein bar, which smelled like punishment wrapped in synthetic chocolate. The medical scanner gave him a once-over. Bone density moderate, muscle mass adequate, reaction time above average but nothing spectacular. His homeworld gravity, 1 standard G exactly. The crowd looked at these numbers and laughed. Actually laughed. The Obsidian Sphere's gravity tech was something special, I'll give the engineers that much credit. The entire fighting platform, a circle about 30 meters across, sat in the center of a massive chamber surrounded by force-shielded viewing galleries. Gravitational field generators lined the walls, capable of adjusting the pull from 0.5 G all the way up to 6 G in increments so smooth you barely felt the transition. The arena floor itself was made of some kind of impact-resistant composite that supposedly could handle anything short of an antimatter explosion. The generators hummed with power, ready to turn the battlefield into whatever crushing hellscape the match required. Both fighters would experience the same gravity, completely fair, completely balanced, completely brutal. The betting pools were absolutely obscene. I watched the numbers scroll across my datapad while sitting in the analyst booth. Karklovex was at 1.01 to win. Jack Reeves was sitting at a laughable 8. Even the most degenerate gamblers in the station, the ones who bet on literally anything with odds, were staying away from the human. The total pool had reached 4 million credits, and approximately 3,998,000 of those credits were on Karklovex. Some optimistic human somewhere had put 2,000 credits on Jack. I remember thinking that person was either incredibly loyal or incredibly stupid. Turns out they were incredibly smart and probably incredibly rich now. Zilmoon, our referee, was a crystalline from Sigma Draconis. Picture a 7-foot-tall praying mantis made of sapphire who communicates by vibrating parts of her body at specific frequencies. She'd been officiating arena matches for 30 years and had the kind of bored, seen-it-all attitude that comes from watching too many beings hit each other. She was running through her pre-match checklist with all the enthusiasm of someone filing taxes. Up in the commentary booth we had Rax and Plenty, named the galaxy's most annoying broadcast duo. Rax was a Kelvorian with too many teeth and a voice that could shatter glass. Plenty Name was a hive mind collective inhabiting a synthetic body who insisted on narrating everything like it was the most dramatic moment in history. They were already hyping the crowd, predicting a sub-3-minute victory for Karklovex. The viewing galleries were packed with every species you could imagine. Dendarians with their tentacles wrapped around overpriced beverages. A cluster of methane breathers in their environmental suits making noises that the translators couldn't quite parse. Some Zentheri traders who'd probably bet on exactly how many bones would break. There was even a small group of humans in one section. About 20 of them, looking nervous but weirdly excited. They were the only ones who didn't seem convinced this was going to be a slaughter. I noticed one of them, a woman with red hair, was grinning like she knew something the rest of us didn't. That should have been my first clue. The preparation phase concluded. Both fighters underwent final medical scans. The gravity generators powered up to standby mode, creating that distinctive whine that made your inner ear feel funny. Zilmoon vibrated the 5-minute warning. The crowd's noise reached a crescendo. Kralvex cracked his knuckles. All 18 of them. Jack Reeves finished his protein bar, crumpled up the wrapper and tossed it in the recycling chute. He looked calm, too calm. The kind of calm that either comes from inner peace or complete ignorance of the danger you're facing. I was betting on ignorance. Again, I should have known better. Zilmoon vibrated herself to the center of the arena, her crystalline body refracting the overhead lights into 1,000 tiny rainbows. The crowd settled into that anticipatory hush that always preceded violence. Rax's voice boomed through the speakers, somehow managing to be loud and grating at the same time. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all biological configurations, welcome to tonight's exhibition match at the Obsidian Sphere. Plenty Name chimed in immediately after, their synthetic voice dripping with manufactured drama. Tonight we witness the unstoppable force of Thoraxian might against the curious audacity of human ambition. I rolled my eyes so hard I nearly sprained some. The introductions dragged on for another 3 minutes, complete with holographic displays of each fighter's stats that made Jack look even more pathetic by comparison. Kralvex entered the arena to thunderous applause, raising all 6 arms in a victory pose he hadn't technically earned yet. His confidence radiated off him like heat from a fusion reactor. Jack walked in from the opposite entrance to polite, almost pitying applause from most of the crowd and absolutely deafening cheers from the human section. He waved casually like he was arriving at a barbecue rather than a potentially lethal combat trial. The 2 fighters approached the center circle. Size comparison was almost comedic. Kralvex had to look down a full 26 inches to make eye contact. Jack tilted his head back and said something the microphones didn't catch, but whatever it was made Kralvex's faceplates flush with annoyance. Zilmoon vibrated the rules. Standard combat protocols. Match continues until surrender, incapacitation, or technical knockout. Gravity would increase in stages. Both fighters nodded. The bell, a resonating tone that felt like it vibrated your skeleton, sounded. Standard gravity 1G. Exactly what Jack was used to and about half what Kralvex trained in daily. The Thoraxian moved first. And credit where it's due. He was fast for something his size. He closed the distance in 2 massive strides and swung with his primary right arm, a haymaker that would have separated Jack's head from his shoulders. The human ducked, barely, and I swear I saw his hair ruffle from the wind. He backpedaled quickly, keeping distance, circling. Kralvex pressed the advantage, launching a combination of strikes that Jack blocked, dodged, and occasionally just ate on his forearms with audible thuds. The human was struggling. Exactly as predicted. His breathing was already elevated. He wasn't landing any effective counter. Kralvex caught him with a glancing blow to the ribs that sent Jack stumbling backward 3 steps. The crowd roared approval. My datapad showed Jack's odds dropping even further somehow. This was going exactly as everyone expected. Everyone except those 20 humans in the gallery, who were still cheering like maniacs. 5 minutes in, Zilmoon vibrated the gravity increase warning. The generators hummed louder. The field shifted to 2G, double Earth standard gravity. Now things would get interesting, I thought. Kralvex would feel slightly lighter than his homeworld, maybe 90% of his normal weight. Jack would feel twice as heavy as he'd ever been in his life. Except, that's not what happened. The human stumbled for exactly 2 seconds as the gravity increased. Then he adjusted his stance, lowered his center of gravity, and kept moving. His footwork became more deliberate, but he didn't slow down significantly. Kralvex, meanwhile, seemed almost confused by the lighter gravity. His strikes started missing by wider margins. He overextended on a punch, and nearly toppled forward. Jack capitalized immediately, landing his first real hit, a solid jab to Kralvex's lower torso that made the Thoraxian grunt. Not much damage, but it was contact. Actual intentional contact. The crowd's noise changed pitch, from confident roaring to slightly concerned muttering. I checked my instruments twice because I thought they were malfunctioning. Jack's heart rate was elevated but steady. His oxygen consumption was high but not critical. He was adapting. Quickly. Too quickly for someone supposedly experiencing double gravity for the first time. The math wasn't mathing, as the humans say. Kralvex seemed to realize something was off too. He changed tactics, trying to grapple instead of strike, using his 6-limb advantage to grab and control. Jack slipped 2 grapple attempts, and on the third he actually used Krulevex's own momentum and the reduced gravity to throw him off balance. Not a full throw, but enough to make the Thoraxian look clumsy. The human section of the crowd lost their collective minds. They were screaming, jumping, making noises that my translator rendered as various forms of encouragement and at least 3 phrases that definitely violated station decency protocols. 12 minutes elapsed. Zilmoon signaled again. Gravity increased to 3G. Triple Earth standard. This was supposed to be where Jack folded like a cheap atmospheric tent. Krulvex would be at approximately 1.6 times his homeworld gravity, heavy but manageable for someone of his training. Jack would be at 3 times what evolution designed his body for. He should have been crawling, gasping, begging for mercy. Instead he smiled. Not a big theatrical smile, just a small knowing upturn of his lips that made my blood run cold for reasons I couldn't explain. He dropped even lower into his stance. His movements became more economical, and he stopped trying to be fancy. Pure efficiency now. Meanwhile, Krulvex was slowing down noticeably. His breathing was labored. His strikes came slower, telegraphed. The roles were reversing in front of 20,000 spectators who couldn't quite believe what they were seeing. Jack landed a combination. 3 quick strikes to Krulvex's midsection that actually made the champion back up. The Thoraxian's face plates were showing stress colors now, blues and purples that indicated oxygen debt. Rax's commentary had gone from confident prediction to confused play-by-play. The human is, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, the human is winning the exchange at 3G. Plenty name added with uncharacteristic uncertainty. This should not be physically possible given the physiological data we reviewed. I was frantically recalculating everything on my datapad. Every number I'd run, every model I'd trusted was being proven spectacularly wrong. Jack wasn't just surviving, he was thriving, and that smile never left his face. 18 minutes into the match, Zilmoon's vibration signaled the next increase. The gravity generators cycled up with a sound like reality bending, and the field hit 4G, 4 times Earth standard. Krulvex's knees buckled slightly before he caught himself, all 6 arms dropping a few inches as if someone had tied weights to them. His breathing went from labored to rattling gasps. The Thoraxian was experiencing more than twice his homeworld gravity now, and his body was screaming about it. Every movement looked like it cost him triple the effort. Meanwhile, Jack adjusted again, rolling his shoulders once, twice, then settling into a stance that looked almost relaxed. He was breathing hard, sure. His face was red and sweat was pouring off him, but he was still moving, still fluid, still dangerous. The smile got wider. "Hey, Krul," Jack said, his voice carrying clearly through the arena microphones despite the exertion. "You know what's funny?" Krulvex didn't respond, too busy trying to keep his guard up. "Earth, my homeworld. Everyone told us we were from a death world. Heavy gravity, violent weather, predators that can kill you 17 different ways." He circled slowly, making the Thoraxian turn to track him, which at 4G was becoming a significant effort. "They said we were crazy, that we evolved in a nightmare." Jack threw a quick jab that Krulvex barely blocked. "Turns out, they were right." He laughed, actually laughed, while fighting at 4 times his normal gravity. "You want to know what I did last month for training?" Another jab, this one connecting with Krulvex's shoulder. "I climbed a mountain back home, 14,000 feet elevation, carried a 50-pound pack, in a gravity well that, oh right, is exactly 1 standard G." The crowd was starting to understand. I could hear the collective realization spreading through the viewing galleries like a wave. Humans didn't come from a light gravity world. They came from a standard gravity world, which meant they'd evolved to handle exactly this. But more importantly, they'd evolved to push beyond it. Jack pressed his advantage, landing a solid combination that made Krulvex stagger backward, each step an obvious struggle against the crushing weight. "You know what else we do for fun?" Jack continued, and the psychological warfare in his voice was unmistakable now. "We wear weighted vests. We do something called resistance training. We literally strap extra mass to our bodies and then exercise, because apparently we're insane." He swept Krulvex's leg, not enough to drop him, but enough to make the Thoraxian panic and waste energy catching himself. "Your species evolved to handle 1.8 G. Mine evolved to handle 1 G. Want to guess which one of us spent the last 6 months training at 5? The arena exploded into chaos. Not the fighters, they were still going, but everywhere else. Aliens were shouting at each other in 40 different languages. The Dendarians in Section 7 were tangling their tentacles in confusion. The methane breathers were making noises that the translators finally parsed as variations of, "Oh no, oh no, oh no." The human section was going absolutely berserk, chanting something that sounded like, "Earth, Earth, Earth," but with significantly more creative profanity mixed in. Rax was yelling into his microphone, "This changes everything we thought we knew about human physiology." Plenty Name was frantically accessing databases, their synthetic voice cracking with what I can only describe as digital panic. Records indicate humans have been performing high-gravity training for over 2 centuries. This information was publicly available. We simply never checked. My datapad started having what I can only describe as a nervous breakdown. The betting algorithms were trying to recalculate odds in real time and failing spectacularly. Jack's odds swung from 84-7-1 down to 120-1, then 50-1, then the system just gave up and displayed an error message. Credits were changing hands so fast the transaction processors couldn't keep up. Someone in the Zenthari trading section was either crying or laughing. I couldn't tell which. The optimistic human who'd bet 2,000 credits on Jack was about to become very, very wealthy. Station security was probably going to have to escort them out just to keep them safe from angry gamblers. The market board showed total chaos, numbers flickering and changing faster than anyone could read them. Several bookies were shutting down their operations entirely, refusing to take any more bets. One booth just hung a sign that said "Closed forever," and the operator walked away. While the arena descended into pandemonium, my mind flashed back to something I'd overlooked in Jack's file, something buried in his background information that I'd dismissed as irrelevant. The human had spent 8 years in something called the Marine Corps, a military organization on Earth. His service record included training in environments ranging from deserts where the temperature hit 30 degrees, to Arctic conditions at -40, to high-altitude operations where the air had half the normal oxygen. He'd completed something called Hell Week, which involved continuous physical activity for 5.5 days with a total of 4 hours of sleep. 4 hours. Total. The man had literally been trained to operate his body beyond normal biological limits, and that was before he'd volunteered for the Gravity Combat Program, which, according to the notes I was now frantically reading, involved 6 months of progressive training in gravity chambers ranging from 2G to 5G, with sessions lasting up to 4 hours per day. Kralvex, through a desperate combination, all 6 arms moving in what should have been an overwhelming attack. At normal gravity it might have worked. At 4G, it was slow, predictable, and Jack slipped every single strike like he was in a training simulation. The human countered with a vicious body shot that I heard connect even from my booth in the upper gallery. The sound was like a hammer hitting meat. Kralvex made a noise that the translators couldn't parse, but that definitely meant pain in any language. His upper left arm dropped completely, hanging useless. Jack didn't even look tired anymore. He looked focused, calm, like he'd found his rhythm. That smile never wavered. "You know what the worst part is?" Jack said conversationally, as if he wasn't currently dismantling a champion fighter. "I'm not even that good. I'm like middle tier for human gravity fighters. We've got people back home who train at 6G. 6. He punctuated this with another combination that Krolvex barely defended against. The viewing galleries were in complete disorder now. Arguments were breaking out. A Kelvorian and a Zenthari were physically feeding in Section 12 over a disputed bet, and station security was rushing to intervene. The databases were being flooded with queries about Earth, about human training methods, about Deathworld classifications. Apparently several species were now frantically checking if their own upcoming human opponents had similar backgrounds. The Galactic Combat Federation's communication channels were lighting up with demands for clarification, rule changes, formal protests. I watched one administrator just put their head down on their desk and refuse to move. Sulmoon stood in the arena looking completely lost, her crystalline body flickering with colors that indicated confusion and concern. The match was still going technically, but everyone knew how it was going to end. Everyone except Kralvex, who was still trying, bless his stubborn thoraxian heart, even as his body betrayed him under the crushing weight. 24 minutes in, Zilmoon made the call that would go down in galactic sports history. Her vibrations signaled the final gravity increase. The generators screamed with power, the air itself seemed to shimmer, and the field locked at 5G, 5 times Earth standard gravity. Kralvex collapsed, not fell, not stumbled, but straight up collapsed onto his knees with a crash that cracked the impact-resistant flooring. All 6 arms hit the ground to support him. His breathing sounded like a damaged air recycler. Every muscle in his body was visible under his hide, straining against the impossible weight. He tried to stand, made it about 6 inches off the ground, and collapsed again. His face plates had gone completely purple, the thoracian equivalent of critical oxygen deprivation. Jack, meanwhile, dropped into a lower stance, steadied himself for about 5 seconds, then stood upright, slowly, carefully. But he stood. The arena went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop in the vacuum of space. Then Jack did something that will haunt my nightmares until I die. He dropped down and did a push-up. One complete push-up at 5G. His face turned an alarming shade of red. The veins in his neck stood out like cables, but he did it. Then he stood back up, looked directly at Krulvex, and grinned. "You know what?" he said between heavy breaths. "I learned this one from my drill instructor." He proceeded to do 3 jumping jacks. 3. At 5 times Earth gravity. This maniac did jumping jacks like he was at a fitness class. They weren't pretty. They weren't graceful. But he completed them while Krulvex couldn't even lift his head. The human section lost their minds so completely that station security just gave up trying to maintain order. They were climbing over seats, hugging strangers and screaming with such joy that several noise complaint warnings flashed on my screen. I wanted to be mad about the unprofessionalism, but honestly, I was too stunned to feel anything. Krulvex tried one more time to rise. He got one arm up, trembling with effort, and then it gave out. His voice came through the microphones, broken and rasping. "I yield. I yield. Please, merciful spirits. I yield." Zil Moon vibrated the match-end signal so fast she nearly shattered her own crystalline structure. The gravity field dropped back to 1G in emergency shutdown mode. The hooded change making everyone's stomach flip. Medical teams rushed onto the arena floor. Krulvex lay there gasping like a fish, all 6 limbs splayed out, looking like someone had run him through a fusion compressor. Jack walked over to him, moving a bit stiffly but under his own power, and offered a hand. The thoracian stared at it for a long moment, then took it, letting the human help pull him into a sitting position. "Good match," Jack said, sounding genuinely respectful. Krulvex just wheezed something that the translators rendered as, "You are a demon made of meat and spite." High praise from a thoracian, actually. The post-match interviews were absolute gold. Rax shoved a microphone in Jack's face the moment medical cleared him, practically vibrating with desperate need for explanation. "Jack Reeves. Human, you just defeated a 43-time champion at his own specialty." "How?" Jack took a long drink from a water container, wiped his mouth and shrugged. "Trained for it. Look, everyone keeps acting like 1G is light gravity. It's not. It's standard. Middle of the road. We evolved for it, so we built our whole civilization around getting stronger in it. Gyms, sports, military training, all of it pushes us past our baseline." He grinned at the camera. "Plus, and I cannot stress this enough, Earth is mean. Our planet tries to kill us constantly. Hurricanes, earthquakes, animals with venom, plants with thorns, weather that swings 100 degrees. We got tough because we had to. Gravity training was just the logical next step." Plenty Name asked the question everyone wanted answered. "Did you know you would win?" Jack laughed, a genuine belly laugh that made him wince and grab his ribs. "Oh hell no. I thought I had maybe a 30% chance. Krulvex is legitimately incredible, but I knew the gravity would hurt him more than me, and I was banking on that edge being enough. Honestly, if the match had stayed at 3G, he probably would have won. I got lucky they pushed it to 5. Lucky," the man called systematically dismantling a champion fighter through superior adaptation. "Lucky." The interview continued for another 10 minutes, with Jack casually revealing that his training regimen included running up stadium stairs with weighted vests, doing squats while holding plates that weighed as much as a small Dendarian, and something called burpees that sounded like a war crime. Krulvex, being interviewed on a medical stretcher with oxygen assistance, was gracious in defeat. The human fought with honor. I underestimated him. This is my failure, not his. Then he paused and added, "Also, his species is cursed by angry gods and I want nothing to do with them ever again." Within 3 hours, the Galactic Sports Committee convened an emergency session. I got pulled into it as the analyst who'd worked the match, which meant I got to watch 15 different species argue in real time. The thoracian representative demanded humans be banned from gravity combat entirely, calling them an unfair advantage wrapped in flesh. The Xanthari delegate argued that humans had simply optimized their training, which was within the rules. A Kelvorian administrator suggested implementing species-specific gravity handicaps. That idea lasted approximately 40 seconds before the human representative, a woman named Jennifer Torres, pointed out that would be discriminatory and probably violated 17 different galactic equality treaties. She was right, and she knew it, and her smile was just as dangerous as Jack's had been. The committee argued for 6 hours. Proposals ranged from reasonable, like better pre-fight physiological screening, to absurd, like requiring humans to wear magnetic boots to add extra weight. In the end, they changed absolutely nothing. The rules stayed the same. Gravity combat remained open to all species willing to compete. The only new regulation was a mandatory disclosure of homeworld gravity and training environments in the fighter database, which was information that had been publicly available the whole time anyway. Humans weren't banned, weren't handicapped, weren't restricted. The committee released a statement that basically amounted to, "We assumed wrong. That is our problem, not the humans' problem. Competitors should do better research," which was the most diplomatic way possible of saying, "We looked like idiots and we are deeply embarrassed." The statement ended with a reminder that gravity combat, like all arena sports, was voluntary, and anyone who didn't want to face a human opponent could simply decline the match. Karlovex announced his retirement the next day. So did 4 other gravity combat champions from various species. The human section of the rankings suddenly looked a lot less crowded in the upper tiers. The fallout continued for weeks. Betting organizations across the galaxy implemented new algorithms specifically accounting for human opponents. Training facilities started advertising Earth-style high-gravity programs. There was a brief panic when someone calculated that humans could theoretically handle even higher gravities with proper training, leading to dark speculation about what humans would be capable of at 7 or 8G. Someone started a petition to classify Earth as a restricted death world, which got about 2 million signatures before humans flooded it with counter-signatures that just said "Cope harder" in various languages. Jack Reeves became an overnight celebrity with endorsement deals from 6 different athletic companies and a book offer he politely declined. The optimistic human who bet 2,000 credits on him collected 4 million, quit their job and bought a small moon. Krolvex eventually recovered, opened a training gym on his homeworld, and refuses to discuss the match beyond saying, "I learned valuable lessons about humility and research." So what did I learn from watching Jack Reeves dismantle every assumption we had about human limitations? Simple. Never ever under any circumstances trust your initial assessment when humans are involved. They are optimized for a world that actively tries to murder them, and they think that is normal. They consider suffering optional character development. They look at physical limitations as suggestions rather than boundaries. Within 6 months of that match, every major combat organization in the galaxy had updated their threat assessment protocols to include a section specifically titled "The Human Problem," which detailed exactly how much trouble a species could cause when they came from a planet that doubled as a training facility for biological warfare against its own inhabitants. I still work as an analyst. I still crunch numbers and run probability models. But now, whenever a human enters the equation, I just write unpredictable, assume dangerous, bet accordingly, and call it a day. My new personal policy is simple and absolute. I will never, for any amount of credits or professional obligations, suggest that a human cannot do something physical, because the moment you tell them it is impossible, they will smile, and then they will prove you wrong just to make a point.